Hold on, hey, whoa, hold on, turn it off. Police department. Hi, how are you? Turn the car off for me. Hi.
You okay? Why put your car in park here?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, there's a car right behind you, so if you roll back, you're gonna hit it.
Are you okay?
What's going on? Huh? You're fine?
On the morning of March 8th, 2025, officers in Ohio responded to a welfare check after an employee at a local business reported a car had been parked overnight in the lot, with someone apparently asleep inside. What started as a routine check on someone's well-being would, within 20 minutes, turn into a contested OVI arrest, a heated family confrontation, and a debate over one of the more obscure corners of Ohio's impaired driving law. The vehicle had reportedly been there since the night before. As officers approached, the woman, later identified by officers as Tanisha, woke abruptly and, by the officer's account, briefly shifted the car into reverse before they could stop it. No collision occurred. But the moment underscores why officers approach a sleeping driver with caution. A vehicle in gear, with an impaired or startled occupant, is itself a hazard. When asked where she was, Tanisha gave an answer officers found confusing. She said she lived there, in a parking lot. Officers asked her to step out of the car. Before continuing, one officer conducted a pat-down, explaining it was to check for weapons. At this point, this welfare check shifts from a consensual conversation into what courts would likely classify as a brief investigative detention, meaning officers now needed at least reasonable suspicion to justify holding her, which the totality of the situation, a disoriented person waking from sleep in a vehicle in a location that didn't match her own account, arguably provided. A brief exchange over an item in the car, which Tanisha identified as money, passed without incident. The officer simply asked her to set it down, rather than escalating. Officers then explained the reason for the stop, the welfare check call, and a visibly flat tire on the vehicle. Tanisha repeatedly explained that she had a flat tire and had simply pulled over, framing her presence there as a mechanical problem, not a welfare issue. She also began asking, repeatedly, to call her grandmother. Officers offered to retrieve her phone and suggested she sit in the back of the patrol car, citing the cold weather, while they gathered information. Careful, both times, to add, "You're not under arrest."
Can I please call my grandma?
I'll get you your phone here in a second. Where's it at?
Or can you call it, because I feel uncomfortable, like I didn't do anything.
Okay.
Here is where the encounter becomes legally significant. Officers told Tanisha she was free to go, but at the same time placed her in the rear seat of a marked patrol vehicle. Courts have repeatedly grappled with this exact scenario under Pennsylvania versus Mims and the broader Fourth Amendment seizure framework. What matters isn't the words used, it's whether a reasonable person in that seat, in that vehicle, with the door now closed, would feel free to simply walk away. Many courts would say no. Verbal reassurance doesn't change the legal character of a detention. The totality of the circumstances does. A second officer, identified on radio as Officer Gonzalez, restarted the explanation from the top. A worker at the location had called police because the car had been there overnight with someone apparently asleep inside, and the caller was concerned for her welfare.
Like I said, we're gonna talk about it, okay?
Tanisha pushed back, insisting her presence was explained entirely by a flat tire, and accused officers of searching her car, though the footage shows the open door was a byproduct of getting her safely out of the vehicle, not a search. Officers laid out their version of events in detail. They approached the vehicle, observed her asleep, and knocked for roughly 10 to 15 seconds before she woke and reacted. To officers, that slow response, combined with the flat tires and an unexplained location, fit a pattern consistent with impairment. To Tanisha, it was simply explained a flat tire. Nothing more. And she grew visibly distressed as the conversation continued.
I'm a flat tire, grandma!
You gotta talk to him tonight.
Hey, seriously, I was sleeping out
I
of a
haven't
flat
even got past the
tire.
point of
I'm a
explaining
flat
it.
tire on my porch. I took earphones, grandma. I'm so
How are
sick
you?
of. Don't come here. Please don't let
So
no.
here's the thing.
An older relative arrived at the scene during this exchange. Officers, speaking to each other, indicated they believed Tanisha had been drinking. The first explicit reference in the footage to impairment as the underlying concern, rather than simply a welfare check. When asked where she'd been the night before, Tanisha's answer was difficult to follow. References to needing to get to work, a medical condition, and an earlier stop at another address. A family member nearby described her as overwhelmed, someone who works 2 jobs and was simply trying to get by. None of this, on its own, resolves the impairment question. Disorganized speech can stem from intoxication, exhaustion, medical distress, or simply the stress of a police encounter. And officers would need more than this exchange alone to establish probable cause. Officers then asked, directly and repeatedly, whether Tanisha would perform a field sobriety test. Under Ohio law, this matters. Field sobriety tests are voluntary. There's no automatic license suspension or separate criminal penalty just for declining one, unlike Ohio's implied consent law for breath or blood chemical tests after an arrest. But a refusal, or in this case, a non-answer treated as a refusal, becomes one more piece of the puzzle officers use to decide whether they have probable cause for an arrest. Alongside everything observed so far,
3 short tests, and you'll be on your way if you pass.
I wasn't trying. Did you see me driving? No.
Go ahead, turn around, put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back.
Can I ask you one question before you do that?
We're done, we're done. I'm not going to sit here and argue with you. Come here for a second. Put your hands behind your back. You're under arrest for OVI, okay?
the handcuffing was brief and, by the footage, without significant force, though Tanisha can be heard saying the cuffs were pinching, and the officer acknowledges adjusting for her movement. Tanisha's repeated question, "What did I do?" reflects a common point of confusion in OV1 arrests involving a parked vehicle. Many people don't realize that, under Ohio law, you don't have to be driving to be arrested for an alcohol-related offense behind the wheel. This moment is the legal core of the entire video. The arresting officer laid out, almost like a legal brief, the basis for the charge: the smell of alcohol, Tanisha's disorientation, and critically, damage to the vehicle and 2 flat tires that hadn't been there when officers had contact with her earlier that same morning at another location, where the car had been drivable. Then came the key legal distinction. The officer stated that because the car's engine was running and Tanisha was in the driver's seat with the keys, this met the definition of operating a vehicle under Ohio Revised Code 4511.19, Ohio's OVI statute. The officer added that if the engine had not been running, the charge would instead be physical control of a vehicle under Ohio Revised Code 4511.194, a separate offense covering someone impaired in the driver's seat with access to the keys, even without the vehicle running. It's a real and important distinction in Ohio law, and one that often becomes a focal point in OVI defense. Whether the prosecution can actually prove the vehicle was operating in the legal sense, or only that the person had physical control of it. Officers also noted that Tanisha's driver's license had been terminated, meaning that, separate from any OV1 determination, she may have faced an additional charge for driving under suspension. Had she been found to have operated the vehicle in that condition, during a search of the vehicle's interior, officers identified a third person connected to the car, a man with an outstanding warrant for felonious assault, who had apparently left the scene before officers arrived, running names and plates associated with the vehicle, and flagging warrants like this for responding units is standard officer safety procedure, and a reminder that traffic and welfare stops can sometimes intersect with unrelated, more serious investigations. A relative who arrived at the scene told officers the vehicle's flat tires and front-end damage were pre-existing, not new. This is a meaningful point for any future legal proceeding. If the damage genuinely predated the night in question, it weakens the officer's theory that Tanisha struck something while driving impaired between her 2 known locations that morning. If it's accurate, it would be a fact for a defense attorney to pursue. If it's not accurate, prosecutors would likely challenge it as a family member's attempt to minimize the situation. The footage alone doesn't resolve which is true. With 2 flat tires, the vehicle wasn't going anywhere, regardless of the OV1 determination, meaning a tow was effectively unavoidable. Officers told the family Tanisha could take any personal belongings she wanted from the car before it was towed. With her permission,
Call my uncle now! Call my uncle now! Ain't don't let me take it. Call my uncle now. I didn't do that to these people. Now, hurry up! Call my uncle
No, I ain't gonna take no shit. I ain't gonna take no.
Okay, all right.
now. I didn't do that to these
I'm calling him, Tanisha.
Now, hurry up!
before any vehicle is towed, departments are required to conduct what's called an inventory search, and it's grounded in a real legal doctrine. Under the Supreme Court's 1976 decision in South Dakota versus Opperman, inventory searches of impounded vehicles are a recognized exception to the warrant requirement. The purpose isn't investigative. It's to document an owner's property, so there's no later dispute about what was or wasn't in the vehicle when it was towed. And to protect officers from handling unknown hazardous items, as long as the search follows standard department procedure rather than being used as a pretext to dig for evidence. It's constitutionally sound. As the scene wound down, officers confirmed Tanisha would be cited and transported, with her license status already terminated, adding a separate administrative complication on top of the OVI, or physical control determination. The footage ends without showing the booking process or any formal charges being read. So how does this one shake out? Let's break it down. Let's start with the officers. We're giving them a B+. Throughout a long and increasingly tense encounter, they kept a calm, even tone. Even as the language directed at them got more heated, they accurately explained the legal basis for the arrest, including a precise, on-camera breakdown of the difference between Ohio's OVI statute and its physical control statute, a distinction many officers get wrong. They also correctly explained the inventory search before the tow and handled the discovery of a third party's outstanding warrant with appropriate caution. Where they lose points is the "you're not under arrest" framing. While placing Tanisha in the back of a patrol car, courts applying the Fourth Amendment's free-to-leave test often find that this constitutes a detention, regardless of the words used. That doesn't necessarily make the detention unlawful, but the framing given to Tanisha may have been misleading about her actual legal status in that moment. Now, Tanisha, we're giving her a C. Her frustration and her requests to call family are understandable. This was a stressful morning. But from a legal strategy standpoint, several choices worked against her. She never gave a clear yes or no to the field sobriety test, even after the officer explicitly warned that a non-answer would be treated as a refusal. A simple, calm, "No, I don't consent," would have been a stronger position. She also repeatedly argued the facts of the case in the moment. Rather than preserving those arguments for an attorney, her repeated claim that she wasn't driving is legally significant. It goes directly to the operation element at the heart of the OVI charge. But whether sitting in the driver's seat with the engine running counts as operating under Ohio law is itself a contested question, and one her attorney will need to address. Let us know if there is an interaction or legal topic that you would like us to discuss in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to check out our second channel for even more police interaction and courtroom content.